Welcome to the Sports Degos with your hosts Sonny and Murph. We advise you to turn down your speakers and turn up your crap filters because it's gonna get loud and messy.
Just win, baby.
Just win, baby!
If I don't have to do all the crap I did this past Saturday as far as cut back and jump over somebody and stumble, I don't worry about getting caught, period.
On an unbelievable night, swung on, there's a high drive, hit way back, and it's Teddy accepted a victory for the Oakland Athletics.
And laughed when he's conquered and won.
Got some physical players on our team. That's the way you have to play to win. That's the way we play.
Get fired up. I ain't playing. I'm telling you, get fired up. Stand up. Get out of that chair, moron. It's time for the Degos. That's right, Murph and Sonny from the Dego Dungeon. You got it right here, live.
Welcome once again to the greatest place that I find myself every single week. That place is the Dego Dungeon. I am your host, Son, and my co-host in studio, as always, roughly 2,126 miles away, but currently, pleasantly in my headphones. Murph, how are you, sir?
Sonny, I'm doing fantastic. So excited to be back in the Dego Dungeon, talking directly into your ear hole. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Hey, and just for the record, I'm watching the Golden State Warriors take apart the Denver Nuggets, currently with a 21-point lead with 3:30 left in the game. Steph Curry, every time the ball leaves his hands, you know it's going in. Bravo, Warriors, 3-1 series lead.
Murph, sports are great and all and stuff, and, you know, it's been a good day. We're going to piss off half the fan base with what I'm about to say, but, you know, it's always great when the Lakers get swept in the first round and the Warriors are doing that much better. But, Murph, beyond sports, I am stoked beyond belief today, Murph, because I recently was at the Oregon coast for the week, right, for the weekend. You know, me and the wife, baby on the way, we're doing a little baby moon, getting away, right, so we're hanging out at the beach. Great weather. If you ever been to the Oregon coast, if you get great weather, that's like just that's 50% right there. You know, you could be great in the valley. You head to the coast, it's horrible. Anyway, great weekend. Coming home, I'm searching, Murph, for corn dogs. I love me a great hand-dipped corn dog. Nothing better in the world, right? Nothing better. So, I go to the farmer's market that they got over there. No corn dogs. I'm a little upset because I've had them there before and they taste great. This guy says, oh, have you been to Pronto Pups? I say, no, what's Pronto Pups? He says, oh, it's only the place where they invented the corn dog. I say, where's it at? He goes, it's in a town called Otis. Strangely enough, I had a dog, a.k.a. a pup, when I was younger. His name was Otis. So we proceed to the place called Pronto Pups in the town of Otis, Murph, and I had 3 corn dogs. Yes, count them. 1, 2, 3. Probably could have stopped after 2, but I pounded 3 corn dogs, hand-dipped in batter. The most amazing corn dogs of my life.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And as a follow-up to your story, I have a question for you. This is a philosophical question, a question it started wars. It's divided religions. It's really been one of the fiercest questions to face humanity since the dawn of time. Do you do ketchup or mustard on your fabulous corn dogs?
Oh, Murph, you're like my wife. You're like my wife. You're closed-minded, my friend. You're sitting in a building with all 4 walls closed, and there's no door open for you to escape your closed-mindedness. Here's how I operate. The first bite of a corn dog is always plain.
You got to go clean on the first one. I'm with you on that one.
You got to judge the corn dog. right?
That's right. That's right.
You know, it's not a frozen. If it's a frozen corn dog, you're drenching that thing in ranch or soy sauce, whatever you can get your hands on, right? But if it's a hand-dipped corn dog, you're taking the first bite and you're savoring it. You're judging for texture. You're judging for the hot dog. Does it actually taste like a hot dog, or is it just a bunch of, thrown together, whatever in the middle of it? This hot dog was nice and spicy. It was pretty tasty.
And you get the heavy corn on the first bite, which is like getting a hunk of cornbread with a little bit of beef, highlight there, right?
It's the best of both worlds. So, first bite, naked, always. Second bite, here's what I do. I take the ketchup. I make a ring around the batter, not touching the corn dog at all. Then I take a little bit of mustard, plop it on the center of the hot dog, and proceed to eat it that way. The second corn dog, Murph, I make a long 2 rows on the corn dog of ketchup. They're like maybe a 1/4 inch apart, all the way down, full length. Then I take the mustard, spray that in the middle, eat the second corn dog that way. Typically, I only have 2 corn dogs per sitting. This time I had 3, so I had no idea how to eat the third one, so I had to plan again. Yeah, that's what I do.
Wow. I never realized that you went both ways. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm really surprised that you don't lie on one side of the fence and the other. I will at times in my life as I've grown and matured and been willing to explore and kind of try some new things and to dabble a little bit. I have gone with ketchup and mustard, but I got to say, there's no replacing the sweetness of Hunt's ketchup on a corn dog. Come on. So good. Ketchup, man. The answer is ketchup.
Yeah, I think I'm a ketchup guy myself. If I had to choose which I'm going to make sure I say this here. Condiment. If I had to choose which condiment to take to a desert island where I'm eating corn dogs for the rest of my life, it would definitely be ketchup.
And ketchup's so much more versatile anyways. Ketchup you can eat on anything. You can eat it in beans to bratwursts. Eggs.
True.
You can have ketchup on everything, man.
This is true, Murph. This is true. But, Murph, we don't talk about ketchup or mustard on this show.
This isn't the Degos, or wait, the condiment Degos.
Yeah. This is welcome to the condiment Degos. We're gonna sit here and discuss what your favorite condiment is, from relish to mustard to ketchup to anchovies. No, Murph, we're here to talk sports. But Murph, in order to talk sports, we got to be drinking a beer. If you came to my house and I said, hey, let's go outside, we go outside, we'll be sitting there not knowing what to do, right? Just kind of giving each other funny looks. But as soon as I say, hey, Murph, you want a beer? Bro, did you see that game the other night? So, Murph, what are you drinking tonight?
You had a comment to me pre-show about how you were clearly going to run away with this one.
Clearly.
How you were clearly going to dominate this competition. And hang on, I got to reach. I'm reaching. Hold on. I'm reaching because I got, Sonny, you know me. I can't be simple in my description of my beer that I'm drinking because, I like to sell it a little bit. I like to build it up because, what fun is a radio show to having just some guys get on and not really have much to say. So I have a lot to say in this segment typically. And so tonight is no different when it comes to our beer segment. And Sonny, I'm not a corporate shill. Sonny, I'm not a slave to marketing. Sonny, I'm an individual. I look at myself like an Austin hipster. I go against the grain. I don't do things just because they're popular. I don't do things just because they're what most people do. I like to live on the edge a little bit. I like to experience the inexperienced. I like to dabble in beers that don't have a lot of exposure. And I know a lot of the smaller breweries are now owned by bigger beer companies, but at the heart of it, though, where those small breweries got started, the Sierra Nevadas of the world, the Pete's Wicked Ales, where the seeds of the innovation of those breweries. I like to taste that because you can see it, you can taste it, you can smell it in the beer. So tonight, I'm drinking Budweiser. But not just any Budweiser. I'm drinking Budweiser Black Crown. I totally fell victim to a marketing ploy, and all that. What I just said previously was a bunch of bull crap because I work for a multi-billion-dollar global company. They had the worst advertising campaign during the Super Bowl. It was just like a bunch of people dressed in dark clothes, walking around carrying Budweiser bottles, and I'm like, what? It was pretty dumb. But I got to say, they call it distinctively smooth, beechwood finished, Black Crown, golden amber lager. It's pretty good. It kind of tastes like a heavy bud. You know, Amber Bock is also an Anheuser-Busch product. It's kind of like the lighter version of Amber Bock. So kudos, Budweiser. That's the first Budweiser I've had in probably 10 years.
Wasn't
I'm done now.
Wasn't Budweiser the one with the this is never a word you I won't even go there. Maybe a couple hours later. Wasn't Budweiser the one who had the commercial with the guy who was very fond of a horse? Right?
Yes. That was the Clydesdale commercial. And you know what? Everybody was like, oh, it's so sweet, so sentimental. I thought that one was stupid.
It was kind of perverted. It was kind of weird. I won't lie. It was kind of weird. In fact, up here in Oregon, that actually happened at a place called Hillsboro. Look it up on the internet. Some dude was caught in a barn with a horse. Anyway, Murph, moving forward. So, Budweiser, huh? That's what you roll in with. Budweiser.
I'm rolling in with it, man. I'm posting the picture up on Twitter now. Wow. I'm rallying my troops already. Come on, Team Murph. Get with me here, guys, because I know Sonny's going to roll something out. He's been on the Oregon coast. He's going to come strong this week, and I'm hoping that my Budweiser Black Crown will prove to be worthy of this beer war challenge.
So, Murph, I went to the Oregon coast. Oregon is known for three things. Rain, good marijuana, if you're into that sort of thing, and micro brews, right?
What about the Goonies?
I guess so, but, I don't know. Who are you going to ask is going to know Goonies over weed? Anyway, moving forward, it's what we're known for, right? In fact, when the marijuana law was denied in Oregon and approved in Washington and Colorado, everybody around here was like, what the heck is going on and stuff, Anyway, moving forward, I was at the coast, a lot of microbrews, right? Tons of microbrews. Got some beer at the coast over the weekend and went in the store and stuff, and I was just like, man, what kind of beer do I buy and stuff, right? And so I was thinking, what beer am I going to get for the show and stuff? I got to show up Murph because he's going to always, roll in with whatever and stuff, So Murph, I was inspired by microbrews, right? I got a buddy who, he's married in his 30s, no kids, so he's always into doing new things, right? He's into microbrews nowadays. He's into, making his own and stuff, So he has his own setup at his house and stuff, And I was checking it out, and it was pretty sick, Pretty cool little setup. Anyway, it got me thinking, I don't want to be like a guy who makes his own beer, in your little, you have a whole room dedicated to microbrew or what I don't know what you call it, right? You just make it. I want to be the guy that's like the 10-year-old kid who goes into 7-Eleven and says, oh, I'm going to get some Pepsi, and then I'm going to get some Dr. Pepper, and then I'm going to get some orange, and then I'm going to get some root beer, right? Back in the day, we used to call that a suicide. I don't know what you called it, Murph, when you mixed all your drinks together. But, Murph, call me crazy. I was out mowing my lawn for 4 hours in the hot sun today. I am drinking the first ever Salmona, Murph. The first ever Salmona in the history of the world. Let me tell you the ingredients.
Oh, no.
Let me tell you the ingredients.
Oh,
It is a full, rich Boston lager. A great beer. Boston lager. Otherwise known as Samuel Adams. But Murph, I don't live in Boston. I live in Oregon, right? And the town I live in, real heavy Hispanic population. I love them. I love their beer even more. So I had to mix in with my Samuel Adams a little Corona, Murph. So I'm drinking, for the first time ever, a Salmona. Picture's been posted on Twitter. And Murph, I gotta tell you, I thought it was going to kind of be weird, and my wife was like, you're kind of an idiot, which, I get all the time, so I don't mean no, it doesn't faze me no more. It kind of tastes good. It actually kind of doesn't taste that bad. I was expecting it to be bad, right? So I, put my glass in the freezer, got a frosty mug and stuff going on, and I'm pretty impressed.
Well, I got to give you props for creativity, no doubt, either for creativity or inability to make a beer run before the show. But either one, I think it's very interesting. I don't know if I'm not going to concede this one, though. I'm going to let the Twitterverse decide. So far, I'm up on you 1-0. But I will applaud the creativity. You know, much like a black and tan, a mix of Guinness Draft and Bass Ale, you know, much like those two mixed beers, you know, spawned a huge interest in mixed beers. And by doing the black and tan, that's kind of what you did. Maybe, you know, the Sammy's isn't quite dark enough as what like a Guinness Stout is, but it's kind of along those same lines. So I'm with you. The only what I don't understand is that the taste profiles of those two beers are way, way different, though. It's not like a Guinness and Bass where there are some similarities. Sammy's is way different than Corona, so I'm curious to how it kind of balances out there.
Murph, it's sweet. I'm telling you. Like I thought I was preparing for the worst, right? I first poured them in, you know. I was going to try to take a video of me mixing them together and stuff, but I couldn't do it. It actually tastes kind of sweet. I'm not going to lie. I poured a little tiny bit at first because I was like, this is going to be crap, and I'll just drink both the beers when we do the show and we'll have a great time. And I drank the first drink, and I was like, that's not bad. So I poured another half glass, and I was like, you know, this is pretty good. So now I just poured myself a full glass and real heady top and stuff, you know, and, you know, I'm happy, Murph. I created it. Simona, baby. It's my new drink of choice.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I got to say, though, that so far, the early returns show that this is probably the only case where a Budweiser wins. Awesome tweet from our buddy at CC Raider Nation. That's it.
You're killing me. Yeah, you're killing me already. All right, Murph. Let's reset. I mean, what should we talk about today? NHL, right? Coming to an end, regular season.
About the conclusion of the NHL regular season.
Yeah, we have to. Maybe some basketball, right? All the teams who won, you know, or that were expected to win won. Maybe we should cover that, right? Yeah, that's important. Baseball, right? A's, they won today, but man, they've been kind of, you know, shaking it up, you know.
Been a rough run for the A's.
Anything else happen over the weekend that's worthy of being talked about, you know?
Something was going on Thursday, but I was getting my toes done, so I don't know. I missed that. Friday was like another version of it or something. I don't know. I was out having pina coladas with the girls, so I don't know. I missed that. And then I don't know. You know, today I just kind of, you know, laid around and really didn't pay attention to sports. So I don't know what you're inferring to or referencing, but I'm sure there was something that went on.
Yeah, I think it's where like teams got to like go to an auction and like bid on people and stuff, you know, kind of like we do and stuff, you know, at like, you know, like machine auctions or something like that. I don't know. So when we come back from the break, I think we're going to try to talk about what that was a little bit and stuff, you know.
Okay, that might be fun.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Kind of cool. I think it'd be kind of.
And you
cool,
know, because I'm sure whatever it is you're talking about, and we'll have to Google it to figure it out. I'm sure no one else was talking about it this weekend. That would, you know, who would go and overanalyze some obscure, you know, sporting thing.
Yeah. It's really weird and stuff. So we'll take about a minute break. We'll listen to a little beautiful song that I wish I wrote, but I didn't. But it's a great song, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Sports Degos, thesportsdegos.com.
And now back to the Degos. Sonny and Murph from the Dego Dungeon, somewhere under your mama's house.
All right, Murph, welcome back to the Sports Degos. If you're listening, we are the Sports Degos, Sonny and Murph. Check us out at the Sports Degos on Twitter. We have our very own website, Murph, which is thesportsdegos.com. And Murph, it is now time to talk about our most favorite and beloved subject. That is the Oakland Raiders. And we want to hit the draft kind of hard. A lot of different angles. We're gonna look at it. And if you want to chime in, if you want to call in. Now, Murph, we don't advertise the number a lot. Here's why. Because we know that we got about maybe 2 listeners listen in. So we don't advertise it because then we sound like doofs. We're like, hey, call in, hey, call in, hey, call in. Nobody calls, right? So if you're listening and you want to call in and talk about the draft, about maybe what the AFC West did in the draft, about what your thoughts are on Reggie, what your thoughts are on maybe DJ Hayden coming back from that injury, the phone number, 971-270-2007. That number again is 971-270-2007. The number can be found on the website, and we'll also post it up on Twitter here in a bit. Murph, what were your thoughts going into the draft? What was your, I don't know, what were you expecting? What were you hoping maybe the Raiders were going to do?
I was hoping that the Raiders were going to add as much talent and depth to their roster in the form of numbers as they possibly could. You know, our team is not in the kind of position as like what the Colts were last year, or even the Redskins for that matter, where they could add one high-profile impact skill position player and then propel them into a playoff team. That's not what the Raiders were at. So by adding a monster D tackle or a shutdown corner or a quarterback or anything like that, that wasn't going to generate a 10 or 11 or 12 win season out of this football team. This team is strapped for cash. They're strapped for players, period. So I was looking for Reggie to make as many moves as possible to generate bodies, to generate as many picks as he possibly could. And that's what they did. And kudos to him for doing that, for getting, 10 players out of this draft. We're going to talk extensively about the draft. And obviously we can't gauge how these guys are all going to turn out. All 10 of these guys, odds are, 3-4 of them probably won't even be on the roster, whatever. But the point is, though, is that there are bodies now coming into the building that the coaching staff can evaluate. They can, base future personnel decisions off of, and also be able to get the money situation under control now with a huge influx of new young talent. So that's what I was hoping the Raiders were going to do, and that's exactly what Reggie McKenzie did, and kudos to him for getting it done.
I was following Twitter the whole time, and it was actually a blessing that I got to watch the draft unfold. As I said, we were at the coast all weekend. I don't have cable. I watch all my sports on the internet. I think cable's a waste of money, to be honest with you. But I was able to watch the draft all weekend, and my wife is an angel. She let me watch the draft as she did whatever she did and stuff. And so I was watching it and watching Twitter the whole entire time and stuff. And Murph, right off the bat, I think something sad happened to a lot of Raider fans during the draft. A lot of Raider fans came into this. It seemed like, and I'm basing this a lot on Twitter and a lot on what the team needs are and stuff like that. It's obvious defensive line is tough. Not bad use of words there, is not tough right now, but it's a tough position for us to fill, and it's a big need for us. A lot of guys kept getting angry and pissed and whatever at the fact that Reggie wasn't signing a defensive tackle. A lot of guys were pissed, essentially, And it's funny to me because when I watched the draft, and by no whatever, am I an expert on it, this seemed like the best draft the Raiders have had in years. Because there isn't one name that I'm hanging the season on, right? There isn't one name that I'm like, oh, man, because we have that guy, we're going to dominate, right? There isn't that player in this draft. There isn't the Jamarcus Russell, who, by the way, Murph, Raiders get a lot of flack for drafting him. Anybody who had the number 1 pick would have taken Jamarcus Russell.
Absolutely. All you got to do is go back and look at the
No-brainer.
immediate response from the analysts. Everybody was talking about what an amazing pick it was for the Raiders and how he was going to be their quarterback for the next 10 years and what a talent he was and blah, 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 blah. I agree with you. And you know what? And frankly, and since we're on the topic, and I'll make it brief, all the crap that Al Davis gets for draft picks and all they love to throw up that splash page of who was the guy drafted after. There was, Calvin Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald and all these guys that were drafted after. You know what? I call BS on that because on those picks, other than Hayward Bay and not getting Crabtree and picking up Hayward Bay instead, other than that, all of those picks were the consensus favorites. You know what I mean? It wasn't like there was, how are you going to foresee that this guy, that Jamarcus Russell is going to turn into what he is? It was unforeseeable, it's unforeseeable the way he was going to react, the mental response he had to the passing of his uncles. And I won't get into the whole, everybody knows the story already, but that to me, I think is an unfair thing. And it's just another example of it's the world against us, man. It's the Raiders against everybody else. The NFL's got it out for the Raiders. They always have. This is the same way they kept cutting the freaking commercials in the 6th round, the 7th round, pissing me off. It's all one big conspiracy. And you know what? Who cares? It's all about us, man.
Anyway, Murph.
Sorry.
I'll be sure not to mention Jamarcus Russell and you and stuff. Anyway, so unlike years past, Jamarcus Russell going to save the day. Rolando McClain going to be the star of the linebacking core and stuff, Hayward Bay, speedy receiver, whatever and stuff, Darren McFadden going to be a beast and stuff, Instead of having these high caliber draft picks that we thought were gonna take us to new levels and new heights, instead of having these free agents that we thought were gonna take us to new levels and new heights, and we're throwing money at left and right and stuff, Javon Walker, Kerry Collins, Randy Moss, it's not, and I love it because of that, but I think. And maybe this is just my perspective, a lot of guys aren't seeing that. This draft was a team draft. Could you address every Raider need in one draft? No freaking way. No way, Murph. No way could Reggie McKenzie fix the years of disaster that has been the Oakland roster. No way could he fix that much money against him and that much money for him in one draft. There was just no way. No way. And so the fact that he went out there and didn't I'm not going to say cave to the fans' demands, because how much is he in touch with the fans? But there was an article, I think it was on Bleacher Report, that showed his press conference and stuff, And over and over again, he said something that kind of was cool. He said he stuck to his draft board, and he trusted his coaches and trusted his staff. That's cool. That's really cool, if you ask me. Because in years past, the sexy pick ended up on the Raiders, and oftentimes the sexy pick was a dud. This time, there really wasn't any sexy picks until you start looking at these guys, and then you're like, well, wait a second here. Sio Moore, this guy's a freaking stud. Wait a second here. Latavius Murray, this guy's freaking strong, man. Wait a second here. David Bass from Missouri Western State. This guy's freaking raw. And so we'll get to each guy in a second, but overall, man, I was stoked. With each pick, it seemed like they weren't drafting to make or break on that one guy. They were drafting for depth, and they were drafting for picks the first round where he traded the third for the ninth, and I think the 42nd overall from the Dolphins. He got a lot of flack for that on Twitter, saying, you should have got more. But Raiders were desperate at that point. And yeah, maybe they could have got an extra third, but at the end of the day, McKenzie got 10 picks. 10 picks. 4 6-rounders and 2 7th-rounders. And we all know, Murph, you get your superstars in the first and second, but you build your team in the later rounds. And, man, I'm liking where we're going. And
Absolutely.
One more point, and then you can go. As far as pass rushers are concerned, you end up with David Bass, and then you also have Sio Moore. When you watch his tape, that guy comes flying in a lot. So, you ended up with the guys you wanted. Anyway, go ahead.
You made an excellent point in that, the Raiders did get a little bit of flack as far as that move out of the third spot down to the 12th from the Dolphins and by, Jimmy Johnson's old draft point board. Yeah, the Raiders came out a little bit unfavorable there, but the bottom line was this. This was a team that did not have a second-round pick. They knew the guy that they wanted. They were going to get him one way or another. So the fact that Reggie was able to make something out of nothing, the fact that the phone rang and he moved, that right there is the success of it. The fact that he still got DJ Hayden and picked up that that number 10 pick in the second round from the Miami Dolphins, that was absolutely huge. So I totally agree with you that I think that criticism is unfair of Mr. McKenzie. And then also is this, to speak to the positional debate, and everybody was freaking out because we didn't take Sharif Floyd and all the other defensive tackles that were on the board at different periods, and we passed over. There's rumors of this team moving to a 3-4. Okay, that's been widespread and kind of leaked out of Alameda over the past few months. There are 9 linebackers on this football team. That tells me they're probably moving to a 3-4. Now, granted, a lot of those guys are going to be depth guys, they're going to be special teamers, but the fact that there are 9 linebackers on this team tells me that there's going to be a shift. That's something we don't know as fans, but they probably know inside the building in Alameda. The other thing that I think guys forgot a lot about, we signed Pat Sims and Vance Walker, 2 defensive tackles, in the offseason. There is currently 5 defensive tackles now, post-draft, on this football team. So even if they stayed inside the 4-3, Pat Sims and Vance Walker are your starting defensive tackles, and that's not also without knowing how, and I always mess up his name, it's Christo Bilukidi. That's the guy that they drafted 2 years ago. We don't know what he's going to be. He's a young guy. We talk often about how, the coaches are the ones that see these guys day in, day out in practice. We don't know. Bilukidi may be a stud in the making. We don't know that. So they could have feasibly 3 potential starters already playing defensive tackle before the draft ever even started. So to freak out about them not drafting DTs, I think that's a little premature because we don't know what this team's going to be like on defense, and it's especially what they're going to need personnel-wise.
All right, Murph. Hey, we got our first caller calling in from 503. Caller, you're on the air.
CC Raider Nation. Name's Chris. I've been listening to you guys. You guys are great. Glad to finally talk to you guys.
You up in Oregon?
No, I was up in Oregon for about a year, but I am in Pismo Beach, California.
Okay. Much better weather down there.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, so what's your Twitter handle?
CC Raider Nation.
All right. What are your thoughts overall, man, on the draft, on the direction, Let's just start with the draft real quick.
Well, with the draft, I couldn't be more excited. With what they're doing, I mean, it's like you said, you take a look at the picks at first, and obviously Raider Nation had no clue about what Reggie McKenzie was doing. We thought we knew, being through several of these drafts, numerous drafts with Al Davis. We didn't have a clue, so it scared us. But like you said, you go back to these picks, DJ Hayden, you look at his tape, and man, wow. The breaking on the ball, this kid, he's always around the football, and he's physical. He likes to tackle. So I love the first draft pick. I thought it was phenomenal. You look at his stats from the 2 years, he outplayed the other defensive backs that were on the board at that time. So I think Reggie did a great job. But going down the line, not to go into too much detail or anything, but, Watson, the Sperano's new project, I think he's going to be phenomenal once we get him, up and running, and he knows what he's doing, on a regular basis. But my two favorites are Moore and Murray. And these guys are going to be exciting. They've got chips on their shoulders. They've been underrated. They're both super strong football player type guys. I'm really excited with what Reddy's doing here.
Chris, let me ask you a question in regards to Hayden. The injury, does it make you worry that he suffered such a severe injury, or is it more that because it was such a fluke injury that it doesn't matter? It's not like he's coming back from an Achilles or tearing an MCL or an ACL or something like that. It was a fluke injury that doesn't really happen a lot, but because it was so severe, it's getting a lot of attention. Does that bother you with that pick, or do you think he's kind of overcome that and he's ready to go?
That doesn't cross my mind for a couple of reasons. If Reggie McKenzie, who is just devout to his draft picks, as we figured out, if Reggie McKenzie is gonna burn his first round draft pick on this corner, and when they get him in front of the press conference and he without hesitation says it is a non-issue for us, that puts my mind at ease, first of all. Second of all, it's that fluke injury thing. It's not, like you said, he didn't tear anything. It's not the legs. It's not the hips. It's not, something that has to do directly with playing corner at a high level that could possibly happen again. I mean, what was it, the first time that it happened ever? So my thing is if it does happen again, I mean, how could you have ever predicted that?
Well, and thanks for joining us too, by the way, Chris. Appreciate you calling in. And I got to say about him, it was such a freakish injury, and also this guy, for him to come back the way that he did, they said that with this type of injury, normally you spend up to 6 weeks in the hospital. He left after 6 days. And, to have that kind of mentality as far as, first off, getting back at it, getting back to living your life, period, but then to get back to life as an NFL football player takes more balls and more mental toughness and more physical toughness. You want to talk about, we hear a lot about the projections of what these guys are going to be, when they come in the NFL. You got a guy like Jamarcus that wasn't tough, and then you got a guy like DJ Hayden. He's proven that already. He's to me, I think that's exactly what this football team needs. They need guys with balls. They need guys that are going to play tough. I heard reports about DJ Hayden. One of the things that he did to test himself was to have his buddies punch him in the chest.
Yes, in the chest.
That's what else do you want? What else could you possibly want out of a guy? I think it's amazing.
Exactly. And that is my point right there, is that Jamarcus Russell and DJ Hayden have both they've showed you that mindset is pretty much everything to go to that, to make that transition to the next level. Mindset is everything. And DJ Hayden, I mean, just look at that story. I mean, for a guy to literally be dead on the field and then rehab and turn around and say, okay, now punch me in the chest and see if I can take it, that's a kid I want to go into battle with.
What about Murray? What about Murray excites you?
The thing about Murray is he is a big man. He's 6'3", 225, I believe. He's got a big frame, but even the 4.38 40, on a frame that size, let him get a head full of steam in this power running downhill scheme. Man, you've got for lack of a better term, a mini Darren McFadden when he gets his head full of steam. So, if you look at his tape and you look at how he ran the ball at UCF, his stiff arm was ridiculous. He would just shove defenders in the dirt. And that part about him, the way that he is able to, his vision, he sees the defender coming, he sees where the cut's at, he sees where the hole's at, he sees how to take it to the house. And you can see that by his eye-popping touchdown stats in UCF. Other than that, he dominated at that level. You know what I mean? He could have gone to a bigger school and still had success. And you can tell that because he dominated at that level at UCF.
Do you think the addition of Murray, and like you said, he's big and he's fast, do you think that is going to push McFadden kind of – because we all know McFadden has it. He has the talents. He has it. He just needs to put it together and stay on the field. And whether he gets hurt, is that his fault or not, or who knows? But do you think with the addition of Murray, and with all hopes that Murray starts, stepping up and maybe doing good in practice, do you think that pushes McFadden so we see a better McFadden possibly?
Oh, without question. I mean, that is human nature. If you don't have someone to push you, you will relax a little bit. I don't care who you are. I don't care how tough your mindset is or anything else. If you don't have that guy that could possibly take my job, you're not going to play as hard as you possibly could. That's just, and when the competition goes away, you relax. That's just human nature. So, absolutely, you see. I would say, Darren McFadden, he's got a good work ethic, anyways. Like you said, we've got it. But maybe what's been missing this whole time is there's never been a guy that we've said, he could take over for Darren. You know what I mean? There hasn't been that guy in a while. No. So if this kid Murray gets out on the field and does what I think he's capable of doing, yeah, I think you in turn get two goods for one, killing two birds with one stone. You pick up Murray, you get a better McFadden and a Murray at the same time.
Well, I think Michael Bush is one of those guys that definitely pushed McFadden a little bit. Michael Bush had the capability, obviously, to be a starting back in the NFL, although he had a much different skill set than what Darren McFadden did. But what I like about Murray is that he's got a similar body type, similar running style, similar everything to Darren McFadden. I don't know how good he is catching the ball out of the backfield. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe not quite as good as McFadden there, though. But I think the other thing that's going to push McFadden on this thing is that this is a contract year for Darren McFadden. The Raiders are eating up all that dead money this year. They'll have money to sign him. Should it come to that next year? But if he goes down with injury again or has a subpar season, guess what, Darren? You can go play for the New England Patriots or whoever else, and we'll stick with Murray at the running back position.
Absolutely, and this is part of the beauty of Reggie, and part of the beauty of his plan going forward. He is going to push people through competition, and now he has created by next year enough money that if he wants you, and if you want it, he can sign you. So what he's doing is exactly what we need to do. He is putting football players on the team through the draft. He's making people show me to these one-year contracts. And then on our end, he's shored up enough money to make sure that if they do show out and fall out for us, that he can re-sign them. And this is the same thing with McFadden. When he picks up Murray and Rashad, free agency and draft in the same year, we get this kid from Cal Poly San Luis, Deontay Williams, okay? That's all motivation for Darren McFadden to get out there and ball out this season. And if he does, good. We'll have the money to sign back. And if he doesn't, okay, we've got a bunch of other guys sitting here that are probably up to snuff. And if they're not, we've got enough to go out free agency and shore up that position.
I think what you said is right on, Chris. There's a lot of competition now. There's no position that's safe. It seems like the guys who are there want to be there, and the guys who aren't there didn't want to be there. And I like that philosophy. I also like that a lot of guys were only signed to one-year contracts. But you got to think they know the Raiders got $70 million coming back to them. So they know if they want a spot, they got to play.
Oh yeah. And Reggie, I guarantee you that's in the conversations with all these names, Porter and Jenkins, and all these guys sat down with Reggie and DA, and I guarantee you Reggie sat across from that table and said, look, you guys need to get back on track, and I need some football players that are going to play. So if we're going to do that, you can show me this year and look, this is what I've done in order to shore up a slot for you. Do you want it? Because if you do, I can make that happen. Now can you make it happen? And this is the beauty of his whole plan, because another Wheeler incident won't happen again. Wheeler balled out. We didn't have enough to retain him. But that's okay, because now we've got a team full of Wheelers and the salary cap to retain them if we need them.
Man, I love that statement. A team full of Wheelers, man. That's exactly what we need, too. That's awesome.
Real quick, Chris, when you're watching the draft, you know guys from like Alabama, LSU, those big schools are usually going to be good football players. Does it bother you when you hear DJ Hayden, Houston, Sio Moore, Connecticut, who was David Bass from, Missouri Western State? Does it bother you to see the Raiders get draft picks from not like no-name colleges, but maybe from not the most prestigious schools. Does that play a factor in whether you think that guy's going to be good or not, or does it just come down to production on the field for you?
It comes down to production, and the NFL is riddled full of Hall of Famers that came from nowhere schools. And if you take a look at our left tackle right now, Mr. Bam Bam himself, that gentleman came from a very small school. And look at him. He is a manhandler. He is a bruiser, and he will destroy anything in his path. Now, if you're talking about small schools, I'm going to go ahead and say with the guys that we picked up, it's a case-to-case basis. But with the guys that we picked up from these small schools, they absolutely dominated at that level. And that's what you want to see. If they're not playing for these major, like, notable universities, these Pac-12 guys, all the, these big-time programs, but they still, it's just like Miles Burris coming out of San Diego. He dominated at that level. And then it showed out when he came and played he started in his rookie year, and still it was able, to make sense for him. So coming out of a small school, no, mindset is still everything. And I think if they can dominate at that level, they can dominate at any level.
I think there's certain positions that you can evaluate, and I don't think it matters, what division or what conference you're playing in, because, instinct is instinct, speed is speed, tackling ability is tackling ability. There are certain
Absolutely.
things, certain inherent traits that you look for in a football player, and it doesn't matter if you're playing at Alabama or Southwestern Missouri State, it's still going to be applicable one to the other. And the other thing I like about it, too, is that really, we've talked a lot about how the Raiders are kind of, although evolving, still doing a lot of the same things that are storied as far as traditions go in the franchise. And Al Davis used to mine small schools for big-time talent. Look at guys like Willie Brown. Nobody was getting drafted out of Grambling at the time that Al Davis went and got Willie Brown. And so, am I mixing that up? Willie Brown came over from Denver. Anyways, but the point is, though, is that's what Al Davis used to do, was go to smaller schools to look for talent, and that's exactly what the Raiders kind of forcibly are having to do now. But I think it still, is going to work.
Well, and I think at a time. At a time when it started like that, Al Davis was a true innovator to every aspect of the game. And so for the Raiders to not do this, I think would kind of be, I don't know, it would be against the Raider way. And it's like you said last night, it couldn't be any other way than to have a Raider at the helm, a former Raider and a current Raider at the helm. And I think Reggie, while he's going away from a lot of Al Davis's philosophy and things like that, he's also sticking very true to some of Al Davis's philosophies. So I think the ones that he is sticking true to are the ones that we need to stick true to. I think they were good tradition. And I think the ones that he's getting away from, I think we all understand why at this point. I've been watching since 1987, and I've seen a lot of things happen, and I think that change was needed at this point. But I do think Reggie's keeping intact the tradition that needs to be there.
That tradition is just win, baby, and commitment to excellence. And for 40 years, Al Davis was the grandfather of that. He was the godfather of it, Super Bowl every decade except the 90s, highest winning percentage. Last 10 years, he tripped up. He was old, Let me see you make perfect decisions in your old age, right? So McKenzie's he's bringing that back, that commitment to excellence, just in a new day. He's still doing it. He's doing the Raider way, just in a new day, and for that I love. And let me ask one more thing, Chris, before we let you go here. On Twitter, Twitter cracks me up, man. You got a lot of followers on there. You got about 2,300, following 2,000, so I'm sure you see it too. What do you say to like? It was almost frustrating to a certain degree watching Twitter on draft day, right? Some guys,
yes, sir,
were just pushing it. It's like you want to say, and you don't want to alienate nobody, but man, don't you realize that like people get paid and are on the road, 200 of 365 days a year. They've watched every tape of this guy, probably from junior high, and they've watched him pick up everything from a piece of tissue to a 100-pound weight. They've evaluated these guys. What makes you think, just because you have an audience of 500 people on Twitter, that your opinion is better than the coaches? There was one guy who said, hey, tell the big fat red, bastard or whatever, the kid with the broken heart, something, is blah, 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 blah. And it just was like, really? Like, is this where we're going, and stuff?
That was offensive, man. That was ridiculous.
Does it irritate you to see that, or do you respond to that, or what are your thoughts on that, man?
I see it happens almost every off season, especially for the past 10 years. With whatever media outlet there is, there's always, the detractors that are wearing Raiders gear, and it really kills me, because this draft, instead of them, trying to educate themselves on what direction Reggie was taking, because I'm not going to lie, there's quite a few takes that I was like, when Cedar Moore was picked, I'm getting ready to tweet out DeMontre Moore. I'm thinking he's coming off the board. And it ends up being Theo, and I'm like, okay, well, hold up. Let me go check this kid out. I'm not going to jump off a cliff because I don't know who he is. So I go and I check him out, and this kid turns out to be a flat-out football player. And the very next tweet that I see is, this is a terrible draft, #kill myself. And I'm like, all right, so you guys are going to go jump off a cliff because you haven't even done the homework to realize in what direction that we're going. And I'll tell you this, the way I sum it up. These guys are not Raider Nation, okay? Raider Nation is the group of guys. Now, you don't always have to agree, and I can dig that. That's the beautiful part about Raider Nation. We come from a lot of different areas. However, these guys are detracting. They are not supporting. They're saying, every negative thing under the book. They're disrespecting Dennis Allen and Reggie McKenzie before they've ever even done any homework. Now, your guess is good as mine. The draft is a crapshoot, and we all know that. But I don't understand, and I've turned it off. I've just walked away from it several times because I can't even post a positive comment without these salty boys jumping all over my timeline and telling me how wrong I am and how terrible and how laughable my comments are. And, for me, I say, okay, if they want to be like that, that's fine. For me, I'm encouraged for this year. I'm encouraged for the future. I'm encouraged for the next 10 years down the road, not just this year. And if they don't want to see that, well, okay. But for me and the Raider Nation that I choose to surround myself with, we all see what's going on here. And it's something to get real excited about. And if you're missing that, you're missing out on this whole thing that we call Raider Nation.
I would agree. It's a great point. For 10 years, it's been in the dumps. It's finally heading in a direction I think that we can all get behind, and that's just fantastic. Chris, CC, Raider Nation on Twitter. Appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate the compliment.
Thanks for having
the show. And, man, look forward to talking to you again on the show and on Twitter.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys. You guys are great. And besides, Budweiser wins tonight. I'm sorry.
Come on, man.
Awesome.
Simona.
Thank you.
Simona.
Simona.
All right, fellas. You have a good one.
Appreciate it. Thanks again, Chris.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, Murph, I thought he was intelligent until he busted out the Budweiser comment. But, hey, great guest. Thanks for coming on, Chris. CC Raider Nation. You're listening to Sports Degos. We'll be right back after a commercial from our sponsors.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
How many times has this happened to you? You have a bass and you're trying to find an exciting new way to prepare it for the dinner table. You can scale the bass, remove the bass, tail, head, and bones, and serve the fish as you would any other fish dinner. But why bother now that you can use Ronco's amazing new kitchen tool, the Super Bass-O-Matic 13. Yes, fish eaters, the days of troublesome scaling, cutting, gutting are over because Super Bass-O-Matic 13 is the tool that lets you use the bass with no fish, no waste, and without scaling, cutting, or gutting. Here's how it works. Catch a bass, remove the hook, and drop the bass. That's right, the whole bass into the Super Bass-O-Matic 13. Now, just adjust the control dial so that the bass is blended just the way you like it. Yes, it's that simple.
Wow, that's terrific bass.
We've got bass here. Fast, easy, ready to port. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 comes with 10 interchangeable rotors, a 9-month guarantee, and a booklet. 1,001 ways to harness your bass. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 works great on sunfish, perch, sole, and other small aquatic creatures. That's Super Bass-O-Matic 13. It's clean, simple, and after 5 or 10 fish, it gets to be quite a rush. Super Bass-O-Matic 13. You're never going to have to scale, cut, or gut again. Just send $49.95 to the Sports Degos, care of the Dego Dungeon, Oakland, California. It's time for another boring podcast. Poop. That's right. The Degos are back. Can't get rid of them. They're like a bad penny.
All right, welcome back to the Sports Degos. TheSportsDegos.com, on Twitter at TheSportsDegos. Again, mad props to Chris, CC Raider Nation, for coming on the show and blessing us with his wisdom. Murph, how are you?
Doing fantastic, man. That was a fun segment. Always good to get some feedback from our listeners, and great to get some feedback from Raider Nation, a level-headed, coherent opinion about the Oakland Raiders and the draft and the Oakland Raiders outlook going forward. Thanks again, Chris, for calling in.
Now, Murph, let's be honest. If you don't agree with Reggie McKenzie, that doesn't mean you're stupid or whatever.
No, not by any
But if you can't see the direction we're going compared to the previous years, and if you're still holding out hope that we're going to sign some big-name free agent or draft one player that's going to put us over the top, then that's where I think the error is, right?
Yeah, that's it. Then you haven't been paying attention to the direction of this football team over the past 10 years, is that, and especially over the past 2 years, this is not a football team that's a player or two away. This is a football team that is 15 players away or more from being competitive year in, year out in a tough AFC West.
Now, on that note, when we'll break down the draft picks here in a sec, Raiders go 6-10. But they show good signs. Some of the games are close. McFadden has over 1,000 yards, plays 12 or 13 games. Flynn has some, maybe a 2-to-1 touchdown-interception ratio. Are you happy or are you disappointed?
Well, I'm always going to be disappointed when the Raiders don't win the Super Bowl. I mean, when I get out of bed every morning as a Raider fan, I want to see my team working towards a championship, and I think that's what ultimately we all want to see. And, you don't ever want to settle. Frankly, that's goes beyond just as a sports fan. I don't think you should ever settle for anything. You should always try to be the best you possibly can be. And in the realm of the NFL, the Raiders at their absolute best will be Super Bowl champions. So I think that anything less than that will always be somewhat of a letdown. But considering this team's recent history, yeah, 6-10, I still think is going to be disappointing. While I mentioned that the AFC West is going to be tough, it's also going to be down this year, except for the Denver Broncos. So, and along with the fact the Raiders have, I think, the fourth weakest schedule in the NFL this year, I don't think there's any reason why this team can't get back to 8-8. But you know what? If they do go 6-10 and end up with another top 10 draft pick, that's not the worst thing in the world either. And that gives Reggie another year to build this team from the ground up. And then we'll also be in a year where they'll finally have some money. So, that's really no easy answer to that question, I don't think. But ultimately, I would say, yes, 6-10 would be disappointing again as well.
I'm kind of preparing myself for a 3-year trial period here. Last year, not really a full year for McKenzie and Allen. They were still a little hamstrung. This year, definitely still hamstrung. With all the contracts and stuff like that. Had to maneuver the picks, Still got 10 picks, but they were hamstrung going in. Next year, I'm not sure if they're going to be hamstrung at all. I think it's all their moves at that point. But, 2 or 3 more years, we're going to have a really good idea of what McKenzie has done here. After the draft, you always see Mel Kiper's draft grades, right? Every website in the world posts draft grades. What do you guys grade this or grade that team, whatever. What do you grade the picks, right? And really, at the end of the day, you can't do that until they play on the field. But then where do you draw the line? Do you draw the line that a guy's a bust after 1 year? Or do you draw the line if the guy's a bust after 3 or 4 years? Look at Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Picked him up. He sat for 3 or 4 years, I think, before he even played. Now he's the highest paid guy in the NFL. So where's the line drawn when you can say whether it was a good draft or not? So I'm kind of preparing myself for a 2 to 3 year. Well, if they go 6-10, at least they won 2 more games. Personnel is getting a little better, more money. Things are more manageable. Next year they go 8-8. Next year after that, maybe they go 10-6. That's kind of my hopes. I know you hope every day they go 16-0, but I don't know.
Well, you said something, I think, a couple of things that were really important there is that number one is that, and Chris brought it up too, the draft is an inexact science. If these guys really knew exactly what they were going to get when they drafted players, then Tom Brady would have never went into the 6th round. So, I mean, it's clearly inexact. There are some guys that get drafted number 1 like Jamarcus and bust, and then there are guys like Tom Brady that come in and set the world on fire in the 6th round. So you cannot gauge the draft or the success of the draft until many, many years down the road. And so I think while keeping that in mind, the other thing that's really important to note is that I don't know if we can define the success of this year by a number, whether that be record or whatever else or stats or anything. I think that we got to look at this season to be defined by health of the franchise. We are now, after this year, going to be financially healthy for the first time in a very, very, very long time. Definitely better than they have been in probably since the institution of the salary cap. So that part is healthy. The front office is healthy. There is no more John Herreras in the front office anymore. There is no more dysfunction in the head office now. There is structure. It is a good place to be now for the personnel in the front office. So then so it's the trickle down. So now what is the health of this football team going to be on Sundays? Are we going to be false starting? Are we going to be setting records for penalties? Are we going to be dropping passes? Are we going to miss blocks? Are we going to miss tackles? Are we going to be have bad assignments? Are we going to not stay in our lane? Are we not going to do those little fundamental things that make football teams good? And that's ultimately what will define the success of this team for me. It's not whether we go into Denver and win or not. It's how we look playing in Denver. Did we lose because we were outmatched by a more talented football team, or did we lose because we did a bunch of dumb crap? That's the kind of things that I'm really going to look for out of this Raider team going forward.
Well, and here's my worry. We've been kicked and beaten and made fun of essentially for 10 years. We went from the winningest team in pro football to the laughingstock of pro football. But now there's finally hope. Now there's finally direction. Now there's finally structure. Now those stupid holes in the practice field are getting filled. I don't know how much patience Raider Nation has left. I hope they have a couple more years because I truly believe we're going in a direction that we haven't gone in before. This is a rebuild. We've been told we've been in rebuild for 10 years, but really we haven't been. We've been, let's put our hopes in this player and hope he can get over the hump. This is a rebuild. Rebuilds take time. The NFL is all about the microwave now. Heat it up, be good now. Look at what the Ravens did. Won the Super Bowl, gutted their team. And so this is a true rebuild for what, 50 years old, right? This is the biggest rebuild in the history of the NFL, maybe in sports in general. So I'm going to give it more than a year. I'm not going to be upset. I'm happy if we're moving in the right direction because hopefully at the end of the day, there's light at the tunnel. Now, Murph, we had an objective when we first talked about it on the show. We were going to have a random fact about each draft pick that maybe our listeners didn't know. And by the way, if you want to check out videos on all 10 of the Raiders draft picks, go to thesportsdegos.com. There's 10 videos of each draft pick on the website. Murph?
Excellent job there, by the way. That was awesome. I didn't know you were doing that, and when you sent me the text to let me know that you put that together, that was my first experience of being able to go through. I knew who guys like DJ Hayden were, obviously, but to get through and to go through and watch the tape on Latavius Murray and Michael Rivera and Stacey McGee and all that was pretty sweet having that all there in one spot. So nice job by you.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Hopefully we'll be able to do it for the undrafted picks as well. Murph, I'm almost done with my Simona. It's actually 2 beers versus 1. Normally I only have 1 beer on the show, so I'm not a big drinker. I only drink when we do the show. So 2 beers may be fun going the rest of the way. Anyway, so Murph, starting with Latavius Murray, a running back picked out of the University of Central Florida. What's a random fact, Murph, you can tell us about Latavius Murray that maybe I don't know or some of our listeners don't know?
Well, here's something fun about Latavius Murray is that there's really not a lot out there on him, and I don't think it's I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that he's a good kid. He's comes from a good home, good family. Had a very storied career in high school, and also after he moved on to college, he is from a very small town in New York called Nedrow, New York, which is just south of Syracuse. So it's only 2,400 people in that town, so pretty. Not going to call none of New York is really rural, but I mean, as rural as New York gets, as upstate New York gets, just south there of Syracuse. So just a good kid. And as we talked about earlier with Chris, this guy's got the body type and the speed to be an absolute dominant back in a power scheme run game.
So you're saying you're a fan of his body?
Hey, you going to judge?
You said it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you said it. Murph, Michael Rivera, tight end, Tennessee. Your country, Murph. That's where you're at, right? That's your boy. Hopefully you know a little about him.
Yeah, that's my guy, Michael Rivera. Michael spelled with a Y. He's an LA guy. But was recruited and played at UT, played in Knoxville, and yes, that's my neck of the woods. And so I always love to see a guy go to the Raiders from UT, much like Denarius Moore from a couple of years ago. But here's what's very interesting about Michael Rivera. He's not the most famous member of his family. In fact, his sibling, Naya Marie Rivera, very lovely girl, born January 12th, 1987, is an American actress and singer. And despite my recognition of Latavius Murray's body, I don't watch the show Glee, but apparently this girl was one of the big stars of the show Glee. So congratulations to Naya and her career, and congratulations to her brother, now tight end for the Oakland Raiders. And I got to say, I put out there on Twitter after this guy got drafted, I got a buddy of mine who, he's a fan just like the rest of us, but he's an absolute diehard UT guy, watches the spring games and follows the recruiting trail. And I mean, this guy is knee deep in UT all the time, 365. I sent him a text asking him about Michael Rivera when he drafted him. And he sent me a text back in all caps saying he's awesome. And I sent him back, and I'm like, "Are you messing with me here?" And he goes, "No, the guy is pure grit. He's awesome. He could play H-back. He's got great hands. Doesn't have a lot of breakaway ability, so he's not like a big red zone threat. But he can come back and play the H-back position, play the block, and that lends me to believe that if this guy's a really good blocker and it has good hands as well to be a threat out of the backfield, that opens up the way for our guy Marcel Reese to play more at the tight end position. And the early rumors are maybe even Terrell Pryor to play at the tight end spot. And man, you want to talk about a 1-2 at the tight end position? You can have Gronk and Hernandez all day long. I'll take Marcel Reese and Terrell Pryor there.
Yeah, I got to think. I watched the video on him. He looks quick. He doesn't look like he has a build of a tight end either, but he looks quick. And I like that addition of him right there. Now, Murph, David Bass. What'd you find out about old David Bass that maybe we don't know about?
David Bass, much like our friend of the show, Dr. Death, I think he's at 26, Dr. Death on Twitter. Much like Dr. Death, he is a diehard fan of Blog Talk Radio. And in digging around for David Bass, I found a pretty cool interview that he did on Blog Talk. It's actually embedded on the collegetopro.com website. I'll post a link up to it. But he did a good interview down there from the East-West Shrine game, and sounds to be a good kid. So Missouri Western State, small school, big-time potentially player, and blog talker.
All right, we'll post up that link here. Any other interesting things, Murph, you found out while recruiting those guys?
There was I didn't really want to dig too much, and I did dig into Stacey McGee's story, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. He was another one of the Raiders. He was actually the Raiders' last 6th-round pick. This guy got a DUI like the night before their bowl game. He's got a marijuana history. He's got a lot of question marks, which is really kind of uncharacteristic of the players that Reggie McKenzie has been bringing in. So I don't know if there's something there in an interview or what it was that lended McKenzie to believe that there's a turnaround here to happen. But, all these guys that get drafted, they're all young guys. We all did dumb stuff when we were younger. We all made mistakes. And, you and I are big fans of redemption and the redemption story. And so I'm hoping Stacey McGee can follow suit and, can be one of those redemption stories. I know you as an, addictions counselor, I mean, you face with this stuff every day. So let me then turn it around back on you. What do you think about Stacey McGee?
You got a burp there, Murph?
Yeah. Did you hear it? Sorry. I had a few sips prior.
Stacey McGee. He has potential. I think of all the draft picks that we did, or that the Raiders did, I had a part.
There you go.
I had a part in it. Of all the draft picks the Raiders did, I think he's the guy with the biggest question mark, the biggest asterisk by his name. I hope I said that right. Because of his prior issues, if you will. I hope he does good. I hope he turns out. I mean, he played for Oklahoma, He might just be a run stopper. I think that's more of what he is. I don't think he's, a pass rushing defensive tackle. I mean, he's kind of a big dude, 6'3", 308. So I think he's more for just kind of clogging up the lane. In regards to his... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I'm curious to... what is, and not to get too, deep here, but when you look at a guy like Stacey McGee, or even really the more high-profile guy this year would be Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, what is and I'm not asking you to speculate numbers here because it's a hard thing. You don't know these guys. You never talk to these kids. But when you look at when a kid that's come from a troubled background, has a drug history, when faced with, if I cease now, if I change my life now, I then can, they'll be handed the golden goose. They'll be handed a career in the NFL, which is something that very, very few people get to enjoy through life. And it's very lucrative, and there's a lot of potential there for these guys should they put the pipe away, put the bottle down, whatever the case may be. What is the likelihood that, of course, they say all the right things now, but what's the likelihood and the occurrence rate of that actually happening for these guys?
I think you're referring to what's called operant conditioning. Some people operate by positive reinforcements. Some people operate by negative reinforcements. For instance, if I quit my job and play video games every day, I lose my paycheck. I lose probably my house, my wife. Maybe she stays with me for a little while. She probably leaves me down the road. So I'm not going to quit my job because there's a lot of negative things that would happen. On the flip side, do I cater to my wife sometimes and meet her needs, like help her clean the house or do the dishes? Well, of course, because if I do that, she's in a better mood, and that leads to positive things for me. So we operate, there's one theory called operant conditioning, where we operate by negative and positive things happening to us. These guys, McGee, Mathieu, those kind of guys, it just depends. Every guy's different, Every guy's different. The NFL, while it does provide a lot of comfortable lifestyle, maybe, it also provides a lot more temptation. And if these guys can't keep it straight in college, dude, the NFL, that's just a whole a bigger arena to mess around with and stuff, So it's different, I think, for every guy. The big thing is what's his system that he's in. Maybe he came from broken homes and stuff. That's why they got him this stuff early on. Now that they're in the NFL, do they have positive, people around him and stuff, I mean, the only reason AA works is because it's relationship-based and it's a community where you don't feel alone and people can relate to you. So if these guys can come on the team and find guys to come around them who can help them, maybe there's some guys who have some similar struggles. They can, become bros or whatever and stuff like that, then they can have success. But at the end of the day, it comes down to our choices and what influences that choices, nature versus nurture, those kind of things. So I think it's 50-50, without knowing anything about the guy's story other than what I read on the internet. And again, I defer back to Mackenzie, Allen, and guys who actually get paid to do their homework and visit these guys and talk to these guys. I got to trust those guys at the end of the day, right? I mean, we can speculate and have opinions, and it's what drives shows like ours and drives Twitter and drives a lot of, blogs and websites and stuff. But at the end of the day, Dennis Allen and McKenzie took a chance on this guy for something. They seen something. They heard something. They read something. So, I got to defer back and say, yeah, I got hope for him. Hopefully. Redemption's a good thing, right? We all need it for sure. Murph,
thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. What about
All right, well, that
Butler?
brings us to our last guy. The fun, unique fact about this guy, besides being drafted the third pick in the 7th round, number 209 overall, Bryce Butler, wide receiver, San Diego State University. A couple fun things. He was a USC transfer. He was not getting a lot of time playing behind guys like Brooks out there in Southern California. So he wanted to get a lot more tape put down, and so he decided to transfer out, and that's exactly what he did at San Diego. He personally, I think this is going to be our sleeper pick of these, 5 guys that are drafted late. I think that he's probably has the biggest potential to be a breakout. He's certainly going to get an opportunity in this team that's kind of strapped for wide receivers still. We're all hoping Denarius Moore is going to be that number 1, but there's still some question marks there with some question marks with Jacoby Ford's health. Can he truly be can he be a Wes Welker type? Can he be that quick slot guy that the Raiders need? So there's a lot of question marks on this wide receiver core. What's Rod Streeter going to do this year? Can he be a number 2? Anyways, I think Bryce Butler's going to challenge. I think Bryce Butler could be one of those guys, that kind of comes out of a small school or smaller school and has the skill set that, again, it doesn't matter what conference you're in. When the ball's in the air, can you go up and get it and then make someone miss and take off for the end zone? So all those things said, he's one of my favorite draft picks for the Raiders this year. And a little known fact about him, when he was at USC, started his own ministry, started Fresh Faith USC, and I think that was pretty cool that he he put it out there. It wasn't only for USC students, but it was for other people in the community as well to kind of get together and share in fellowship, and so pretty cool. I think that's a good draft pick for the Raiders, and I look forward to seeing him play in the upcoming season.
Yeah, when they picked him up, I had no idea he was from USC. Being a Pac-10 guy, Beavers and stuff like that, you hear Robert Woods. You hear of that guy. You hear of Mr. Lee. You hear of
I said Brooks. I'm sorry. Yes, Woods.
Yeah, Woods. You hear Woods and Lee, and then to hear Butler, it was like, I didn't know they had a third receiver. So hopefully, he played behind 2 studs, still had a pretty good tape, and, pretty cool thing to start at USC. So we'll see what happens there. Appreciate your homework on that, Murph. When we come back, we will get into Shut Your Fat Mouth, Whopping Historical, and a couple news stories, Murph, that we found worthy to share on our very prestigious radio show here. You're listening to the Sports Degos.
Hey, yo, Vinny, what's the name of Daddy's radio show?
The Sports Degos, yo.
What's your cousin's name?
Yo, Sonny.
Yo, Sonny, and what's Daddy's name?
Yo, Murph.
Yo, Murph. How old are you?
6.
6. And you know that the greatest team in the history of sports is who?
The Raiders.
And who stinks?
The Broncos.
We'll be right back.
Hey, you're listening to a podcast with Sonny and Murph. They'll make you a podcast poop.
All right. Welcome back.
Good old Local Mark. Insulting our
love
listeners
that.
and talking about poop.
Gotta love that one. Welcome back to the Sports Degos, thesportsdegos.com, on Twitter at the Sports Degos. Murph, I could easily talk another hour about the Raiders, but, we might have some people out there getting tired of hearing about the Raiders. I don't see how that can happen. But, we should probably cover some other stuff out there, So, real quick, Murph, let's jump into a little segment we call Shut Your Fat Mouth.
Is this on? Hey! Is this on? Hey, shut your fat mouth. I'm talking here.
Murph.
Go ahead.
Who gets it this week?
There's some guys that every once in a while will pop off and say something out of line. There's guys that do it semi-regularly. There's guys that don't realize they're doing it. There's guys that sometimes do it for effect. And then there's some guys that just absolutely do it 24/7, nonstop. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what exactly their intention is. It's to further their career, to gain more opportunity. And that's exactly what this guy had that's going to get you shut your fat mouth from us this week. This guy has made an absolute career out of popping off and saying dumb stuff. He said racially insensitive things. He said, attacked people's, intelligence. He's done a lot of things that were so out of line. I'm not even going to repeat them. I posted up one of the latest articles on Deadspin about him. And I'm talking about Chael Sonnen. And Chael Sonnen just fought John Bones Jones in UFC 159 this past weekend. And, despite all of the things that were going on around the NFL draft, there was some other things going on in the world of sports. And one of those things was UFC 159. And frankly, the fight was just a farce. I mean, UFC has really had trouble in getting some of their cards together here lately. And this was put together last minute. Chael Sonnen was a name to plug in there to go against Bones Jones. And Bones Jones just absolutely took him apart. I mean, it wasn't even that close. I mean, the most memorable part of the fight was actually Jones breaking his toe, which if you guys hadn't seen that was pretty gnarly. But anyways, Chael Sonnen is 36 years old. He's just clearly outmatched, and Bones took him apart. Ended quickly in the first round. So Chael Sonnen has done a lot of egregious things throughout his career, and he gets the first ever Lifetime Achievement Award for Shut Your Fat Mouth from the Sports Degos. And, all the despicable things that he's done, criticizing the different competitors, again, saying some racially insensitive things to them, all that said and done. His most egregious error to me was calling into the Jim Rome show, our beloved Jim Rome show, the annual smack off that happens in April, and last April calling in and winning the smack off, the first ever professional athlete to win instead of one of the fans, one of the callers. So Chael Sonnen, Lifetime Achievement Award, and probably the last time we'll ever have to worry about hearing from you because your 36-year-old ass just got whipped by Bones Jones. Shut your fat mouth, and hopefully you're gone for good.
Is this on? Hey! Is this on? Hey, shut your fat mouth. I'm talking here.
Murph, I'm not a big fan of the UFC, but whenever there's a fight, I'll watch it, usually online, or, check it out afterwards, see who won and stuff like that. I was more of a big fan back in the day when Gracie was on there and stuff like that. The first time I ever heard Chael Sonnen's name was on the Rome show. And I'm not a big listener of Rome anymore. I check it out every time and time. But he came on there and he just sounded like this arrogant, kind of just this arrogant prick, Almost kind of how Matt Hughes used to sound. I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Hughes, but he was kind of this country boy, and a lot of people liked him, but he kind of just had this swagger about him, And some guys like swagger, some guys he don't, whatever. But Chana just has this arrogance, a lot more than Hughes ever did. Almost kind of like Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz, those guys.
It must be because Chael Sonnen's from Oregon. Are you Oregon guys, man?
That's not it. I'm originally from the Bay Area, by the way. I'm kind of glad he got worked, actually. It wasn't even close. And I hope he doesn't come back. I'll be honest with you. I'm done with him. Murph, we love Twitter. At the Sports Degos, we love Twitter. In fact, we're on Twitter, at the Sports Degos. It's been one of our biggest plugs for our show. It's where we interact every day. We learn a lot. We interact. New articles always popping up and stuff. It's a great place to meet fellow Raider fans, especially, I'm in Oregon, you're in Tennessee, so it's a great way to connect. But man, Murph, sometimes Twitter is hilarious. Great stuff on Twitter. And you found an article on Bleacher Report titled what, Murph?
Well, I don't know what the title of it was. No, I'm kidding. Well, I guess it was pretty self-explanatory. The funniest tweets from the NFL draft, and it was pre-draft, and I just hit the link for it too on Twitter. The pre-draft tweets, the during the draft tweets, and the post-draft tweets. And I got to say, man, when I found this article today and went through reading some of this stuff, I was laughing out loud. You know, it's really common for us to put LOL in tweets and in texts and all that kind of stuff nowadays. But, man, it just really did. It had me belly laughing at some of these things. And so I put the link up there. I encourage you guys to read through them. And if you would like to, I'd say, well, let's highlight a few of these things because, man, some of them are really, really funny.
Here we go. Shooter McGavin.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites right there.
I didn't know Shooter McGavin had his own Twitter handle. Shooter McGavin tweeted, "The first pick in the NFL draft tonight should jog on stage, double pistols, fake handshake Goodell, nut tapper, look at crowd, single pistol."
Dude, when he went nut tapper, that killed me. Wouldn't that be so funny? I just had a total mental image of some big old hulking 6'6", 330-pound dude come walking on stage, fake handshake it down and crack him in the nuts. Dude, that would be so funny.
Pretty good.
All right, another one of my favorites. This one is from during the draft. This one is from David Murphy, who's at High Cheese, and he just says, "Raider team needs yes."
You know, Murph, there's still a lot of stereotypes about the Raiders. The very next one says by Andrew Slater, at Andrew Slater, Sleighter, "Don't give the Raiders your pick. They're just going to spend it on drugs." What? Come on, man. Really? We're past that. Right? We're past that, right? Come on.
All right, this one during the draft is if our Madden fans, the upcoming Madden 25, the cover athlete came down between old school guys and new school guys. The old school won out, and Barry Sanders is going to grace the cover of Madden 25 this year. And he came out to announce the Detroit Lions pick this year for in the draft in the first round. And Chris Solari, at Chris Solari, tweeted out, "This is the first time that Barry Sanders ever followed 3 good offensive linemen."
Yeah. I like that one. A couple more. Murph, you better be careful who you follow on Twitter, because the whole Twitter world can find out who you follow on Twitter. Just ask Tavon Austin, West Virginia, All-American wide receiver. Matt Seebeck, at Matt Seebeck on Twitter, tweeted this: "Rams #1 pick Tavon Austin is on Twitter." Then he posts his Twitter handle. "And here are the latest people he's following." and in the picture, he's following Thick Red Bone, Team Follow Back, Team Bad Bitch, Team Bootylicious. The next guy he's following is Miss Jazzy, XXX. "Yeah, I'm an effing," or "yeah, let's see, yeah, I'm effing like a porn star. Miss Jazzy, official Twitter page to book me for live shows." And then he's following Deion Sanders. Oh my goodness. Oh, Thick Red Bones, Miss Jazzy, XXX, and Deion Sanders for a little spiritual guidance on Twitter.
I'm sure Prime is absolutely just thrilled that he's fit in there with those two. Okay, here was one of my favorites. This is from Sports Pickle, at Sports Pickle. "Breaking: Geno Smith has gotten 2 stars now on every level of Angry Birds."
Yeah, right?
Poor Geno Smith, man. He got hung out there in a bad quarterback draft. And then he got drafted by the Jets. Blech.
Yeah, what's going on?
Oh, poor
there,
guy, man.
You know?
What about, wait, I didn't see this one last time. Eric Stengel, at Eric Stengel for the 29th pick. The Patriots get 63 more draft picks.
That's how you do it, man. You got to get draft picks. Get draft picks. That's how you do it. Murph, we're, We're Italian. It's our heritage. It's our culture. But Murph, I'm up here in Oregon. Not a lot of Italians up here in Oregon. Not a lot of paisans up here. We're from the Bay Area. It's where our parents grew up. They tell us all the stories of the Italian neighborhoods they grew up in, more specifically the Sicilian neighborhoods they grew up in and stuff. And I'm jealous, Murph. One thing Italian about me is the hair on my back and the loudness of my voice. You're out there in Tennessee. You don't get a lot of Italian culture out there either. So every week on the Degos, we do a little tribute to our culture, if you will. We do a little thing called the Whopping Historical Fact of the Week. And Murph, you do a phenomenal job at this. So Murph, for this week, what'd you get for the Whopping Historical Fact of the Week?
Wow, well, thank you for that introduction. That's quite flattering. And, you're right. I spent 23 years of my life growing up in the Bay Area, honing my Raider fandom and honing my love for Italian food. And while the Bay Area is steeped in Italian tradition, Middle Tennessee certainly is not. A lot of Irishmen up here, but no, not a lot of Italians running around Nashville. No, there's a couple of decent Italian restaurants, but nothing like back home, nothing like La Villa Raviolis. And so anyways, I've really enjoyed this segment because every week it allows us to kind of dive into our history and really allows us to dive into the heritage of the Italian people and the Sicilian people. And sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're significant, and really, I was looking for something lighthearted this week because I knew we were going to have a lighthearted show, and so I was looking for something really fun and light. But man, there was two things that I came across. One is really fun. One is mildly depressing. It was good for our country, but really kind of a heavy-duty fact, but impossible to ignore for the whopping historical fact of the week. So we're going to start off with, let's get the bad out of the way. On this day, which is April 28th, today is the day that Benito Mussolini, a former prime minister of Italy, and his mistress, Clara Petacci, were executed. On this day in 1945, they called him El Duce, Benito Mussolini. They were shot by Italian partisans who had captured the couple as they attempted to flee Switzerland. The 60-year-old deposed former dictator of Italy was established by his German allies as the figurehead of a puppet government in northern Italy during the German occupation toward the close of the war. As the Allies fought their way up the Italian peninsula, defeat of the Axis powers all but certain, Mussolini considered his options. Not wanting to fall into the hands of either the British or the Americans, and knowing that the communist partisans who had been fighting the remnants of roving Italian fascist soldiers and the thugs in the north, they would try him as a war criminal. He settled on an escape to a neutral country. So he and his mistress made it to the Swiss border, only to discover that the guards had crossed over the partisan side. Knowing they would not let him pass, he disguised himself in a German coat and helmet, hoping to slip into Austria with some German soldiers. His subterfuge proved incompetent, and he and Petacci were discovered by partisans and shot. Their bodies then transported by truck to Milan, where they were hung upside down and displayed publicly for revilement by the masses. So a good day in American history, a dark day when it comes to the Italian heritage.
Yeah, Murph, I don't know what to say about that.
Sheesh, man, heavy, huh?
Yeah, kind of depressing, to be honest with you.
It is kind of depressing. So let's go the full circle of life.
Please.
We've explored the death and the dismay and the bad and the evils of World War II. Now let's get into something really cool. Let's talk about, on this day, April 28th, 1916, there was a birth. The circle of life, Simba was held up, and we came full circle, and Ferruccio Lamborghini was born. And if you don't know who Ferruccio is, you definitely know who Lamborghini is. Lamborghini is absolutely one of the most popular supercar brands that the world has ever seen. And you know what I thought was really fun about Lamborghini? They started off as a tractor company. that Ferruccio Lamborghini, the man who founded the company, founded it as a tractor company. And it wasn't until he sold the company off later on in life that it truly grew into being one of the most exotic supercar producers in the world. So on this day, the death of Mussolini, but the birth of Lamborghini.
That's interesting. Started out as a tractor company. I would have never thought that. How do you go from tractors to one of the most renowned cars of all time? That makes no sense to me.
You'd have to read deeper into the wiki.
Yeah, Murph. I don't read.
I know.
I think about how to create cool things like Simona. Which, by the way, is pretty darn good. Yeah.
Gosh, let's move on. This was depressing. I should have done something different.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. A little depressing. Here, maybe we can...
Dude, it was too significant of an event. How do you ignore freaking Mussolini? I'm like,
Play
Bring
some,
on Dino. There we go.
Play some upbeat music here.
There we go. Much better.
Boy meets girl, right?
Da-na-na-na-na. What?
That's it.
Oh, I thought we were going to get when the moon hits you right like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
Nope. Short and sweet, Murph.
Okay.
Murph, you sent me an email earlier this week, and you said Gronk should have been a Raider. Why should Gronk have been a Raider in your eyes? I mean, we all know Gronk. He's a cool guy. He's kind of maybe a rebel to a certain degree. Kind of does his own thing and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on Gronkowski? Why do you think he should have been a Raider?
Because he goes to house parties and chugs Bud Light Platinum on the sidewalk. Like, what is more Raider than that? The fact that Rob Gronkowski is a New England Patriot and not an Oakland Raider just really stinks. This guy is the absolute epitome of the unapologetic nature of the Oakland Raiders. Party like heck during the week, play like heck on Sundays. Man, I wish that this guy would have been introduced to the planet 30 years ago, because he would have been perfect to play along those storied Raider teams of the 70s out there with guys like Kenny the Snake Stabler and the Soul Patrol and Mark Van Egan and, of course, the Twos and Otis Sistrunk from Mars and all those great Raiders. Every time I read an article about Rob Gronkowski, it absolutely reminds me about the Raider teams back in the 70s. And I think that, here's what I like about Gronk. Not only would it have been awesome, obviously, his ability on the field and as funny as I think that he is off the field as a Raider, but I think that all athletes really could use to lighten up a little bit. And I understand that there's a lot of money at risk. I understand that they have to maintain a certain persona in the eyes of fandom, and they have to be role models to kids and all that. And I get all that, and I respect all that. But to be so absolutely robotic and straight-laced as some players are, and to not let your personality come to the forefront more often, I think it's kind of a shame. And I gotta say, man, I think it's pretty cool that a guy like Gronk lets his freak flag fly. Like, he just does him, man. He's not worried about what his image is. And what, all that said, he's not doing anything horribly offensive. He's not doing anything vulgar. He's just like this big overgrown frat boy. And so it's just kind of funny watching his exploits and watching the things that he's done throughout the course of his young career. And so I dig the guy, man. And I do. I think that he should have been, not only should he have been a Raider, he should have been a 70s Raider.
Murph, back in the day, I had this book. It was my dad's book. I believe it was called Snake. Don't quote me on that.
Oh, that is.
It was about. Yep. Was that the book? Yeah, it was about Stabler and the Raiders back then. But the cover of it, I'll never forget. As a young kid, it was a Raiders helmet, upside down, and beer cans inside of it. And you're right, man. Gronk, he would have fit that to the T. It baffles me that he's playing on New England. On the link we just posted up there, it shows this cat running across the street, screaming stuff, And then in a later picture, he's wearing this pink shirt and it says security, back off, BITCHs. Good stuff, man. What do you think Belichick says about that guy and stuff? Well, Gronk had a great day, had a good buzz on, had met some new people, and came home safely. You know, like, what do you think? How did Belichick reel that guy in? You know, how do you cut Chad Johnson because he was kind of a little too crazy, but then you keep a guy like Gronk around and stuff? You know, it just kind of baffles me there. Good stuff, nonetheless. Though I agree with you, Gronk, Raider, that'd be awesome. Murph, we're moving forward. We're
booking along. We're booking along.
We're running a marathon here, Murph.
We need to hit a break, though. Can we hit a break real quick?
Hit a break?
Hit a break.
Like, you want to break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar or something, or
what?
Yeah, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about Brian Burke and what else did you watch this weekend besides the NFL draft? You're listening to the Sports Degos.
I'm putting up a picture on Twitter for you.
Welcome back to the Sports Degos, thesportsdegos.com, on Twitter at the Sports Degos. Every week we should try to get 2 or 3 news stories to present to you guys. You know, we're fans of sports, but ultimately we're fans of people and just fans of kind of cool stories that surface during the week. This week, a sad sack. Sad sack is somebody that just whines about everything. Nothing can go right. If they have top ramen, they complain there's not enough water in it. If they have a Simona, they complain there's not enough Corona and there's too much Samuel Adams in it. If it's hot, they complain it's too hot. If it's cold, they complain it's too cold. They're just always complaining about everything. I'm sure everybody has a sad sack in their life. And so here on the Sports Degos, we try and educate our listeners by finding sad sacks and pointing them out to you so you are better able to recognize the sad sacks in society. And we have a little theme music to go with it.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Sad sack.
It's really unfair. It's my team. It's my quarterback.
Sad sack.
I'll be lying if I said that it didn't bother me.
Sad sack.
Sometimes emotions is what makes a person.
Sad sack.
Promised Mess I wouldn't do this. But, as I said, there comes a time when
Sad sack.
Oh, I just changed my shirt. My chicken!
Sad sack.
I'm not a sad sack, am I?
You
sad sack. Some people are sad sacks, and some people are just flat out uninformed. And every once in a while, you'll come across a guy that's both. And in this case, Brian Burke, former general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, congratulations, because not only are you a sad sack, but you are completely out of touch with social media, with the current state of the internet, and kind of how things work in the digital, universe nowadays. Brian Burke was fired as the Toronto Maple Leafs general manager back in early January. And almost immediately after he was fired, the rumor started that his personal life played a major role in the Maple Leafs decision to let him go. It was speculated that he had this sexual affair and fathered a child with a reporter and all these things that came out. And we're not going to get into the dirt about Mr. Burke's affair or his relations with this woman. We're going to talk about why he's such a sad sack. The reason that he's a sad sack is that he blamed it on the people that drew attention to it, and now he's trying to sue the internet. You big idiot. You can't sue the internet. So he says he's going to sue them, and here is the list of defendants. And this is why this story rules. This sad sack is trying to file a lawsuit against, and I quote, these are the names: No Fixed Address, Cam Barker Fan, Lavy 16, MB Skidmore, Too Loud, Lube, Naga, Mower Man, Aaron P18, Steve Kaboomin8, and now here we go. We're going to hit the home stretch. The Z-Brad, Slobberface, Pooner Man, Isolated Circuit, Canada Kev, and Sir Psycho Sexy. You guys consider yourself on blast because Brian Burke's coming for you. Stupid sad sack.
Hey, Sad Sack. Seriously? You are the Sad Sack of the Week with Murph and Sonny.
You can't sue the internet.
Pooner
Big
Man?
dummy.
You gotta be kidding me.
He's going to try to sue a guy named Pooner Man.
What a scoundrel, that Pooner Man. Don't even get me started on Sir Psycho Sexy. What the crap? What's the world coming to?
Oh, my gosh. Out of touch.
The world's crazy. Let alone Murph. No accountability for his actions. That's not his fault, though, right? It's only the people's fault who, put him on blast, right?
Oh, it's clearly the commenters on the internet is what caused him to, break the sacred matrimony of his marriage and cover it up and all that stuff. Yeah, it was all the internet's fault.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact that he actually did cheat on his wife and father a child. Heaven forbid that be an issue in this story here. All right, Murph, winding down. I've had a couple Simonas, which means I'm 4 in. I think I'm onto something here. I think every week I'm going to be combining some brews. I've drank about every possible beer to mankind. It's now time that I start combining them. Seeing, what's out there as far as, Coke and root beer, Pepsi and orange, Corona and Samuel Adams. I'm 1 for 1, man. I'm batting 1,000 so far. Murph, the NFL draft, do you watch anything else when the NFL draft is on? And, does football trump every sport for you? We're in the middle of NBA playoffs. But yet, in my mind, in my eyes, the draft took precedence. I'm at the hotel the last couple of nights. I'm watching Sports Center, watching the did I just burp on air, by the way?
Yeah, that's all right. Go for it. It's late in the show.
I've
farted on air before, so I guess your burp wouldn't be so bad.
This is true. We do it on both ends on the radio show. I'm watching Sports Center. I'm watching the draft talk, and it's just talk. And then they cut through a commercial. Sports Center ends, and it's like, we're going to replay the Atlanta Hawks and whoever they're playing. Brooklyn, I think, or I don't know, whoever they're playing. And I was kind of upset. I was like, I want to hear about football. I don't want to hear about basketball. I would rather hear about the draft than actually watch NBA playoffs. Am I wrong there? Or is the NFL that popular and that prestigious these days? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. I think that, one, the answer to your question is that, yes, the NFL is that popular. And in addition to that, there is more information and more outlets for us to consume than there ever has been, ever. I mean, so when we were kids and the draft would go on, it was something about that you would read about, on Monday. You'd find out about what happened in the draft, and of course, and then you go way back and there was, I forget how many rounds, but there was certainly a heck of a lot more than 7 rounds. It was like 14 rounds or whatever. But, so the chances for us to consume, analysis and coverage and, live reporting and all that stuff, it's definitely more in the forefront. So football being the most popular sport, we're going to gravitate towards that, being big NFL fans. Same reason that we watch the Combine or whatnot. And then, so then the other thing that I think that's important to note is that while the NBA playoffs may be going on, and as much as I love basketball and I love seeing our, Warriors doing fantastic for the first time in a while, I wish David Lee wouldn't have got hurt. They probably have a better chance to even go another round after they knock off Denver here. But when you look at all of the other series going on, they're all at 3-0. Like today, you mentioned that you were looking for more draft stuff. or excuse me, the other night when you were looking for more draft stuff. Today, when I was grabbing lunch, the Heat and Bucks game was on, the Milwaukee Bucks. And so I had the chance to watch the Heat close out the series, sweeping the Milwaukee Bucks, or watch Game Changers on NFL Network. And they happened to have, they were doing the Tyrann Mathieu one, and it was him sitting there with a one-on-one interview with Deion Sanders. Well, that's what I watched, because I already knew what the Heat game was going to end up. There's not like you're going to see something spectacular happen there or something unheard of, but I was definitely more interested in seeing what Tyrann Mathieu had to say when confronted with a guy like Deion, who's a straight shooter, and his whole school and all that is all truth, right? So he's a guy that you got to be honest with. He's not a guy that you're gonna be deceitful to. So that's what I consumed. That's what I chose to watch today for midday. There wasn't any big golf tournaments going on. There really wasn't a lot going on in sports, other than there was an A's game on today as well. But we're talking about the early, super early, spring in MLB. So there's nothing really compelling there, where the draft is compelling. So to answer your question, I think yes. I think most whether it was NFL Network or ESPN or whatever outlet you chose to watch, if you got your guys Mayock or your guys Gruden or whatever, you're going to watch the draft, because it's a start. It's a freshness. It's the beginning. Everyone's undefeated. No one, all these players could be potential superstars. So you want to see what your team's going to end up doing, and that's exciting. That's exciting as fans, and it's, and I think that, it's a lot of fun. So unless you're a diehard Miami Heat fan, I don't see why you would choose that game over, the draft coverage.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it's so much that you knew the games were over, or the series were over. Who was it? Was it Nate Robinson on Chicago?
Yeah.
He had a big monster game and stuff. It was cool to read and cool, see and watch and stuff. But I think as I get older, man, football is just trumping everything these days and stuff. I mean, I'm an avid sports fan, I'll watch golf, watch baseball, watch basketball and stuff, but when it comes to the NFL, I don't know what it is about it. It just trumps everything for me these days. And it hasn't always been that way, but it's getting that way as I get older and stuff like that. So, it's pretty interesting.
It's becoming year-round. When we were growing up, it wasn't that way. I mean, it was when football season was over, it went dead. I mean, we didn't have combine coverage and OTA coverage and free agency periods and all that kind of stuff. Not the kind of coverage that we have. It went dead, and it went on to listening to A's games on the radio or watching them on Channel 36 or, reading box scores the next day in the Mercury News. That was the kind of sports coverage that it moved on to. Not this 24-hour. I mean, we have a freaking NFL channel. I mean, that was when I remember when NFL Network first started. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to watch anything else. and it's still the same way. Like, my TV is on, unless it's on ESPN for a reason. It's the first thing I turn to is number 212 on DirecTV. Man, it's going straight to NFL Network because it's the best content. And so yeah, I mean, it's out there now. It's out there for us to consume, and so therefore we do it.
Yeah, I'd say nothing equals it for me. Murph, I'm tired. Good show. A lot of guys chiming in. One guy says at Autumn Wins on Twitter. Draft, even if I liked basketball, football is where it's at. Another guy says he's at Babs, BABZ 850. NFL draft, even if my team was in the finals.
That tells you right there, right, huh?
Yeah, that's it right there, huh? That's it right there. Murph, real quick, we couldn't not touch on it. Last week we talked about which game we were going to go to, Steelers or Chargers. I think was the last two, right, that we were voting on. Now that the Chargers have Teo, does that change whether we go to the Chargers game or the Steelers game? Because I don't know about you, but as soon as the Chargers picked up Teo, I said, oh, man, can you imagine the atmosphere in the black hole when the Chargers come and they got Teo? I don't know, man. I'm on the fence at this point now. Chargers, Steelers, Oof. Tough call. I don't know.
When you look at the storied history of the Oakland Raiders, there's no doubt that the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the most hated rivals of our team because they kept us from winning numerous championships. But as of recent history, the San Diego Chargers have turned into a pretty big rival for the Oakland Raiders. I mean, I think back to that game on Monday night, Jamarcus's first year starting when, they kind of got robbed on that Monday night. It was Seymour's first year with the team. Lewis Murphy caught a touchdown pass in the end zone to win the game, and they called it an incomplete pass because he didn't carry the ball through the catch and blah, 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 blah. The Chargers have really turned into a big rival for our team. So, despite how competitive they may or may not be this year, I think that may be a great game to go to. And then when you add in the fact that it's Manti Te'o, and it's like, I'm rooting for you, Manti, but I want to go to that game just to hear the creative ways the Raider Nation comes up with to insult this guy. And because, as long as it's not done with any, as long as it's kept in good taste, I am all about a good ribbing. I am all about, you and I both are, as long as you're not attacking someone's, nationality or, religion or something like that. That's, or their mama, as long as you're not doing that, as long as it's in good taste. Hey, look, when you got a fake girlfriend, all bets are off because she don't exist. You can say anything you want about her. And I'm looking forward. There's going to be somebody with what was her name, like Lilana Kakue or whatever. There's going to be somebody with a Kakue Chargers jersey. Like, there's going to be just tons of stuff that Raider Nation's going to come up with, and I'm telling you, man, that could be really, really fun. Not to mention the fact that the Raiders would have a good shot to win that football game.
Yeah, that could be the one. That could be one of the 6, one of the 7. They win next year. Who knows? So yeah, still up for debate. Maybe we'll post on Twitter, ask fellow Raider Nation if we could go to one game this year, what would it be? And we'll go from there. All right, Murph, we were going to cover the extensive draft of the Broncos. We did a lot of homework on it, too. A lot of homework, a lot of props for Elway. Gosh, Broncos, they did their thing, man. But, Murph, I've had 2 Simonas. It's getting late, I'm tired. Spent 4 hours attacking my yard earlier today. I don't know if I got anything left to hit up the Broncos. I hate to say it.
I gotta say, man, I'm really disappointed. I was looking forward to not only dissecting the draft of the Denver Broncos in 2013, but looking at the projection of this team going forward and looking at the strong, storied past of the Denver Broncos draft history, going all the way back to, even at the time when the Indianapolis Colts drafted, that Saint John Elway, and then he was immediately traded to the Denver Broncos. I really wanted us to explore that, and I'm disappointed. I have my Craig Morton bobblehead, here on my desk, and I got my Three Amigos, tattoo. I cut one of the sleeves off my shirt so my Three Amigos tattoo could show. I'm really disappointed, Sonny. I was expecting a little more time here at the end, and maybe let's take that into consideration next time before we go into all this prep work.
Yeah, maybe we should just, we spent about 50 minutes on the Raiders and stuff. Maybe we should, maybe cut 10 minutes off of that segment to talk about the Broncos. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we should definitely, or let's just go AFC West as a whole. Heck, you know what? Let's go, instead of doing so much on the Raiders, let's go Broncos, Chiefs, Niners, Dodgers, Lakers, Kings. Let's just go with that.
Is this on
or not?
Hey! Is this on? Hey, shut your fat mouth. I'm talking here.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Murph, you should be suspended for saying so many cuss words on the radio station all at one time.
I feel icky.
Give me a break.
And I don't mean like Icky Woods.
Sad sacks. All right, Murph. Appreciate the show. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you hanging out. We're going to pitch it to Twitter Nation, to Raider Nation. What game should the Degos go to? The Chargers or the Steelers? Eesh. Tough call. Both be great games. Appreciate the work you did this week, Murph. The draft. Things are moving forward. Next week, maybe we should kind of discuss all the free agent signings. I mean, a lot of undrafted free agent signings by the Raiders and stuff. Reggie, definitely drinking his Red Bull, staying up late, and doing work. It's been fun. Anyway, signing off. Appreciate everybody tuning in and stuff. Murph, any last words?
Just a big thank you to everybody, to our tens and tens of listeners that listen to the show live and the hundreds of people that download our show the next day. And thank you very much for your support of the show. We have a blast doing it and look forward to doing a lot more. Find us at thesportsdegos.com. Find us on Twitter at thesportsdegos. Facebook / The Sports Degos. Pretty much Google anything The Sports Degos with an E, and you can find us. And yes, we did the Degos on purpose with an E. It's not Dego as the Degos. It's Dego like us. Dego.
And mad props, Chris, on Twitter at CC Raider Nation for coming on. Appreciate sharing the wisdom and the discussion. The discussion, Murph, is always divine. It's not perfect, but it's always divine. Until next week, Sports Degos, sportsdegos.com, all the archives and podcasts. And Murph, we're lining up an interview potentially with the Boss Ladies. I'll leave it at that.
We're taking over the